So, hey guys, today I'm going to be engaging with a video that's a sort of a debate between Konstantin Kisin, who's a comedian and has become a free speech advocate, and the cosmic skeptic, who's Alex O'Connor. They're discussing issues that, even though it's not an overtly Christian discussion, I think there's still something for us here to gain as they talk together.
What would I have to say to you to give you lifelong anxiety?
Well, it takes a lot to make me cry, but
Right.
there are lots of people who, I mean, we see it because we see stories that people take the piss out of, because they'll see a story that someone said something that's made people feel anxious, or that's given someone a panic attack or something like that, and people often make fun of this because they think it shows how sort of weak and snowflakey the libs are, right? But the fact that we're able to sort of make a joke like that demonstrates that there do exist such people.
No, it doesn't necessarily demonstrate that at all. What it demonstrates is that there are some people who have worked out that complaining about the speech of others is a very good way to get attention.
So quick pause before going on. I think the premise that we're starting with, and this is helpful, the premise is there are people dealing with a problem where they hear certain things and it triggers them or it gives them anxiety. To the degree that that's happening, and to the degree that sometimes people are faking it or just trying to get attention, that's real. But at the very least, we could say, yeah, this is happening, but what's the solution to that problem? Is the solution to that problem to be that we need to make sure we never say anything that could possibly trigger someone, or is there a different solution?
I don't think there's a way for somebody who's
Of course there is.
prone to anxiety.
Of course there is. If you are prone to anxiety and something I said on the internet gives you lifelong anxiety, it's not me that's the problem, it's you. And you need to get therapy for your anxiety until you're better.
Perhaps, but it's not like somebody chooses to be in that situation to start with, right?
I'm not suggesting they do. What I'm saying is they're choosing not to change the situation that they're in by not seeking the support they need to deal with what is an underlying mental health problem.
It's possible they don't realize that it's lurking there until it's
In that case, I'm
activated
doing them a great service by pointing it out, aren't I?
Yeah, well, perhaps. That's interesting.
So I remember I ended up having a discussion. This was during sort of the height of the pandemic, and there was a lot of talk about anxiety during that. And I was interacting with a friend, and it was kind of complicated because he was. I had done a video talking about anxiety, and my friend was telling me what his friend, who dealt with anxiety at a high level, was saying about it. And the main thing that his friend was saying about it was sort of like, this guy obviously doesn't get what it's like to have anxiety. Saying to me, I just don't understand what it's like to have anxiety, because you can't just sort of decide not to be anxious, which is true. We have limited ability to just sort of change our instinctive response to someone. But it ended up in this place where this guy seemed to be basically saying, if you're dealing with anxiety, everybody else just needs to adjust to you. There's just nothing that you can do. And that's a tragic way for any of us to handle any problem in our lives. In this discussion, they might be saying, like, hey, you need therapy. I'm not anti-therapy. As believers in Jesus, we would say, you need Jesus. You need to know that the God of the universe loves you and that you're secure in him, and that's why you don't need this anxiety to rule your life. But at the very least, it does bring up the idea that we can either start to think that we're stuck, or we can start to almost revel in nobody understands how hard I have it. And that has never helped anyone.
This is my attitude to all of this stuff, because I am someone who's, as I say, I'm a very different person to the person I was 20 years ago. And one of the reasons is I've purposefully sought out ways of thinking and ways of rewiring my brain to be more resilient, to be able to deal with difficult things, to deal with the anxieties I felt about all sorts of things. And that's why I'm not someone who is careless. I'm not saying what I'm saying as a trying to own anyone. I'm saying what I'm saying from a point of view, which is, I know that everyone experiences anxiety over something, and the fact that you experience anxiety is, number one, not to be unexpected. You're a human being. Anxiety is part of life.
You can't get away from it.
If you don't like experiencing anxiety when other people say things you don't like, you are the person responsible for dealing with that. And that is the best way for you to live your life. That's the best way for me to live my life. That's why when Kate Smurthwaite insinuated that I was alt-right and a Nazi, I make jokes about it instead of suing her, which I'm sure I could, right? Because while I do think it's important for me to be able to go and defend myself in court against deeply damaging allegations, I don't think the fact that Kate Smurthwaite called me something is necessarily detrimental to my reputation or to my character. What would be detrimental to my character is if every time somebody said something nasty about me on the internet, I decided to internalize that and go, oh, someone called me ugly, someone called me fat, someone called me skinny, someone called me this, therefore I'm now anxious. That would be the worst possible thing for me to do. So I'm not saying what I'm saying out of a lack of compassion. I just don't think it's healthy to take the words that other people say and internalize them as something that means you now have to experience emotions about it. Do you see what I mean? And I am...
It's interesting because I feel like this is helpful. And I don't know where this guy is at as far as Christ. Like it's not a part of the conversation, but I feel like what he's saying that is there's so many things he's saying that are so accurate, and then it kind of falls a little bit short. But it is so true that it's a better way to go through life to say, what can I do about my situation that I found myself in? I feel like this is true of the Proverbs. There's the constant idea of Proverbs with its wisdom is not sort of reveling in the idea of like, hey, you've had these bad things happen. It's about what can you do in this? I think even the scriptural idea about conflict resolution, that if you are the one who's wronged somebody else, you're supposed to go to them. And if they are the one who's wronged you, you're supposed to go to them. The idea is that you're not sort of a victim of all of this, but that you're meant to be active. We're all, as believers, meant to be constantly asking the question, what is God's calling for me in this situation? Then when he comes to the point of saying, like, I'm going to sort of choose not to feel emotions about this, I feel like instead what we as believers get to do is we get to bring our burdens to the Lord. We get to bring the reality of the fact that, wow, that did hurt me, and maybe it still hurt me more than I'd like to admit. But what am I going to do about it? And what I'm going to do about it is not just to say I won't feel emotions, but what I'm going to do about it is to say there's a God who loves me deeply. I'm bringing my burdens. I'm laying them at his feet because that's too much for me to bear. And less will these words or these things that I deal with others rule my life because I have somebody leading me through this. I have a shepherd leading me through this instead of me just deciding with my brain or with my mind, I'm going to overcome this. I think something that this came around to, I remember several years ago, there was something that had come up around our church where there was somebody or there were a group of people who were upset with the leadership. It wasn't like deep intensity, but they were. And they were clearly sort of in the wrong. It's not that they were wrong to feel upset, but just their perspective was not good. It was not right. And I remember being in a staff meeting and just saying that, where I was like, okay, look, people are going to get mad at us sometimes, but they're in the wrong. We need to just move on. And one of the other pastors said to me like, well, I guess it's easier for some of us than others. Sort of implying that for me, I'm like, hey, I'm over it. And he was like, I'm still feeling this. And I think what that points towards, and part of this discussion is that for some of us, it's going to be easier than others. Some of us are going to feel like, they said that about me, I'm moving on. Others are going to feel like that's more of a battle. And we all have those things in life. For some of us, it's like, lust is more of a battle, or blowing up in anger is more of a battle, or hiding things is more of a battle. We have that. What that doesn't then mean is I'm sort of a victim of my whims or a victim of my emotions. As believers in Jesus, we are spirit indwelt. We're able to bring our burdens to God, and we're able to ask the question when we feel trapped, when we feel stuck, what can I do about this in terms of drawing near to God, instead of saying the world needs to now adjust to me because something's hard for me.